Well, Sharks, a fascinating watch going forward. A top 4 side in 2024. More competitive against Penrith and Melbourne perhaps than the Roosters were if you line them up side by side. But there does appear to be a gap between them and that top 2. Can they close it? And what are the pieces they need if they are to turn what they currently have into a side that can win a premiership? Here are 5 options for the Sharks to bolster their list from the November 1 signing window. Well, Hazelton, Dykes, Stone Street, they're leading the young charges for Cronulla. Fonua-Blake, released from the Warriors, will also bolster their talent, but only 11 spots locked away. That's never ideal, as we said, but it does give them the chance to shake things up a little bit. Can they attract some young talent, and can they hold the talent that they already have? There's a lot of sides that are going to come after those young players that are out of contract, so they're going to spend a lot of this off-season and a lot of the early part of next year trying to lock those players away to avoid them getting pried out of their club as they look to close in on those top 2 sides. Well, we've had a look at 2024 and we've had a look at the Sharks' list of currently signed players. Now we're going to give you 5 options that could bolster their run for a premiership. Option 1, Shamsi Nicoll-Klokstad. Well, the fullback position has been discussed a lot with the Sharks, and whilst Kennedy is not Tedesco or Pappenhausen, is he good enough to drive this team all the way to the promised land? And if he's not, is Nicoll-Klokstad someone that could potentially do enough to be a premiership winning fullback? Hits the ball hard, doesn't mind a try assist, knows how to read the game and set things up. So it's really that question, if they look at what they've got now that's solid, and can they perhaps turn that into something else? They've got to assess whether each position or each option they have is a premiership winning role, and just maybe that would be an upgrade that can close that gap. Option 2, Tyran Wishart. Well, Tyran Wishart from the Melbourne Storm can play fullback if they want him to, but his utility, strength and versatility might be something that the Sharks look at to bring on board in a number of different roles within their side. There is aspects within his contract at the Melbourne Storm that suggest that he's no guarantee to leave, that they might certainly be able to retain him, and their player retention has been pretty solid. Obviously, there is a large degree of exodus that generally happens, but if they want him, then he's going to be hard to pry out of there. But I think his versatility will be very appealing for Cronulla. Option 3, Will Price. Price at Newcastle, a superstar in the Super League, hasn't quite landed that type of performance or to that level within the NRL, but it does seem inevitable that he will at some stage. He's another one as a 5/8 option, can play fullback, and I think he'd be very appealing because at this stage, given he hasn't exploded, the price would be relatively cheap, and it might be one of those Moneyball type situations where you buy low and then they can grow into that role and be immensely successful, and he's also the type of player that suits their needs to a T. Option 4, Sean Lane. Well, the Sharks need a bit of depth in that second row. He's not necessarily going to be cheap, and a lot of it will depend on whether they re-sign players that they have in that role already, the Sharks, but he would be ideal coming into that lineup to give them that necessary depth. But you do look at the likes of Wilton and those sorts of contracts to determine whether they A, free up room and free up the cash necessary or the capital necessary to get that deal done. But he would be another gettable option. Option 5, Kurt Mann. Well, the common theme with what we've been talking about is utility options, players that can play a number of roles, and Mann has been used primarily forward, but can certainly play roles back if need be. He could be an ideal bench depth player who will start in a number of matches next season for the Sharks. So he's another one that can just come in and give them a few different things or a few different magnets that they can throw around over the course of a game. And I think that is the order of the day for the Sharks. Get a number of those soldiers that can play multiple roles and give them the flexibility to challenge the top sides. Well, there are our 5 options. Let us know in the comments if we're missing anyone or if you want to throw up any additional names or comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and catch all of the NRL news at zerotackle.com.